And welcome back. We continue now our team coverage and our discussion with Congressman Louie Gohmert.
Yes, we're going to turn it now over to KETK's Daniel Pierce in our News Update Center, who will be asking questions submitted by constituents across East Texas. Daniel.
Well, Neal and Kaci, all day we've been receiving questions East Texans within District 1 want to ask the congressman, and we only have time for a few questions, so we are taking those regarding some of the more widely asked topics on our Facebook, Twitter page, and email. So thank you, Congressman Gohmert, for joining us. Now, the first question that we do have is about job creation in East Texas. Andy Rothborn from Smith County writes, since you've been in Congress, Kelly Springfield closed their tire plant, Train has eliminated jobs, and the U.S. Postal Service distribution facility in our district has closed. What are you doing specifically to bring jobs back to the district, Congressman?
That's a great question, and I appreciate the question. Some people tried to blame the labor unions when Kelly Springfield closed, and that wasn't their fault. The folks that headed up Goodyear told me that it was the most efficient operation they had. And that was like within a year before they decided to shut it down. And they said Alabama and South Carolina, I believe it was, offered them millions more than Texas. You just got to tell your governor to get out a bigger checkbook, and then we'll leave the one in Texas. But there were some of us in Congress that went to China and sat down with CEOs over in China, and we asked, why did you move all your manufacturing? The number one answer, I thought it'd be labor, regulation, number one answer, because of the corporate tax. And as Steve Moore, the number one economic advisor to Trump, has said, Louie is brilliant when you point out that actually the corporate tax is a tariff we put on our own goods. When we get rid of it, or at least drop it to 20, I hope we at least get to 20, but I'm hoping even more that it'll be 15, you will see jobs flood back. We have people already saying we're excited about what we're hearing. We're going to start hiring as soon as that gets passed. We're bringing jobs back to America and back to East Texas.
Well, when can East Texans, I guess, specifically see the increase on jobs here in our community?
Well, thank you, Daniel. I think you're going to start seeing it very quickly because people that are in the oil and gas business are telling me we're already gearing up to hire more people just based on what we're hearing is coming. And already, with what the Trump administration has done in executive orders to lift some of the problems that Obama had put in the way of drilling for oil and gas, we should be on track to become energy independent and to have a lot more jobs. I went down to a rig down at Center. I said, how many people you got here? They said, 64 or 5. How much do you make? Well, we got one guy that only makes $80,000. $80,000 a year will feed families, and I can't wait for those jobs to be coming back.
Well, on the topic of bringing the community together, because that was actually another very widely discussed topic, Shelby Laird asked, it has always been my understanding our representatives represent all of the citizens of their district.
Right.
How will you work to speak out against divisive partisan rhetoric and work towards communities which represent differences in diversity? So, Congressman, do you feel there is an equal representation within East Texas? And if not, how can we get there?
Well, 74% voted for me. I was making promises, repeal Obamacare, cut back regulations, make us more energy independent. We were going to make sure that we secured our border. And so I understand there's 26% that I do represent that didn't agree with me. But I want to hear, and my staff and I all have been helping people who don't agree with me. They said, I didn't vote for you, but I'll always appreciate what you did for me. If the federal government is giving people in East Texas a problem, I'm your guy. That's why I spent much of the day today in Marshall. They're getting jacked around by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and I'm going to bat for them, and we're going to fix the problem. But as far as bringing us together, well, let me tell you one thing that will not help. That is indivisible. I brought this from their website. They say stall the Trump agenda by forcing them to redirect their energy away from their priorities, having town halls. And it says congressional offices have limited time, limited people. A day they spent worrying about you is a day they're not ending Medicare, which we're not going to do, and on and on. But so they're saying stall us and keep us from reaching our agenda. Well, that's why I'm not doing town halls. I am not going to be bullied by mobs. into preventing me from keeping my campaign promises. I'll talk to anybody. I've offered to Indivisible, hey, elect some people. That's what the founders said. We can't have mob rule. You pick some people. I offered to sit down with them and say, no, we demand a town hall where they can yell at me, of course. That's not good for us. People that will come and get our help, they'll see I help anybody.
Well, Congressman, thank you very much. We're going to turn it now over to a break, and we'll be right back where we discuss the topic of immigration with Congressman Louie Gohmert.
Okay, welcome back. Now, question I haven't seen a lot of parents and teachers mind House Bill 610. This limits the authority of the Department of Education. Shannon Franson asks, where do you stand on the House Bill 610 that would eliminate the Department of Education and cut funding?
Okay, is that King's bill? I think it is. If that's Steve King's bill. The problem I had is, and frankly, I don't have a problem doing away with the Department of Education. If you look at the Constitution, the 10th Amendment says specifically, anything that's not enumerated, specified, is reserved to the states and people. Education is not enumerated, therefore it's reserved to the states and people. And if you look at House scores, we've gotten hurt over the years by the federal government having more control. We ask of the Texas Education Agency how many people were teachers, what percentage, what were the numbers back in 1979 when the Department of Education was created. 3/4 were teachers. That sounded about right to me. Now it's 50%, right about 50%. Why? Because we have a Department of Education that makes demands of Austin, and then Austin makes demands of the school system, and they have to all hire bureaucrats to respond to the Department of Education. The reason I haven't signed on to that bill, the reason I don't support it is that the only way I support doing away with the Department of Education, if all that money goes straight back, we don't run it through so DOE gets a cut out of it, it should be right back in the states where it came from.
What about the alphabet agencies, Department of Education? It's lined with bureaucrats. Critics say those are the people who are unelected that need to be gone.
Exactly. They should be. And that's the biggest problem. I mean, we're paying way too many people that really, they don't help a bit. They don't teach anybody the alphabet. And they're not even having time to teach cursive writing in most schools.
What about DeVos? Was that too much of a controversial pick, you think?
See, I don't know her enough to really say. There's some things that really concern me about her. And I don't know her personally like I do some of them, like Jeff Sessions. But obviously it was controversial. But from what I understand and from seeing the playbook of some of these folks, they were going to raise Cain no matter who it was.
All right. Well, switching gears now to, I would say, one of the biggest topics in Texas, obviously, because we are a border state.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration, border security, sanctuary cities. Congressman Gohmert, I see you're very active on social media, posting links, of course, about sanctuary cities and particularly what Donald Trump has been doing recently. Also, ICE. The president has expanded the jurisdiction of ICE, increasing the number of ICE agents along the border. He also signed that executive order to strip funding from those sanctuary cities. Do you think he's headed in the right direction here?
I think he is headed in the right direction, and I appreciate his efforts. Actually, we funded $4 billion previously under when President Bush was in, to help build much of the wall, even if it was virtual wall. But Janet Napolitano said we don't need it. And so both Congress and the Department of Homeland Security is trying to figure out where did the $4 billion go that's supposed to go for the wall. And I understand there is some of that money left. I think we're going in the right direction, and I was hit up by a Hispanic or Mexican TV station in Washington just recently, and they were saying how offensive the wall is. And I said, look, the best thing that America could do as a neighbor of Mexico is build a wall where we can, enforce the border where we can. I read that there's $68 billion in drugs that came across the border. Why is Mexico not one of the top 10 economies in the world? It's because of the corruption. Why is there so much corruption? $68 billion in drugs. They run things. If we cut that down to thousands of dollars instead of billions, we end corruption. But look at Mexico. The location is about as good as there is in the whole world. 2 oceans on 2 continents on either side. They have more natural resources than most countries in the world, and we know they've got some of the hardest working people in the world. They ought to be a top 10 economy. We build a wall, you can expect Mexico to surge up. It's the best thing we could do as their neighbor.
Now, President Trump said he wants to put a 30% tariff on goods from Mexico. Is that going to be a problem?
It is going to be a problem, and I've talked to people here in East Texas who have, one in particular just told me last week, look, we get goods from other countries, including Mexico, and they're 60% cheaper than what we're getting here. If you put even a 20% tax, what my friend is calling, and I love Kevin Brady, great guy, but he's got this 20% border adjustment, some say 30, but that would add, and my friend was saying, we got 2,500 people working here. If you make us pay 20% more for tax, then it's not, we're still going to get it from Mexico. We're still going to get it from the same place. But now because it costs more, I'm going to have to lay off hundreds of my people because we are then not competitive. So I would rather just lower the corporate tax, let them depreciate whenever they need, the year they take it or buy it or over time, and that's where I think we're headed. And I'm hearing enough members of Congress saying the border adjustment is a mistake, quit trying to get cute, just get to a lower flat tax and business will come back in a hurry.
Now, talking a little bit about the so-called dreamers, that generation, obviously we've got, I wouldn't say a whole lot of dreamers here in our East Texas area, but we do have some, and they have reached out to us, and they're frankly terrified about what's happening.
I understand that.
What kind of reassurance, if any, can you give them about what's going on in D.C.?
The problem, Kaci, is, and I've spent a lot of time, Breitbart had an article saying they saw Louie Gohmert dressed like a bum. Well, I wasn't dressed like a bum, but I was, you know, down there on the border, and I've spent nights down on the border watching. And the Border Patrol tell me every time somebody in Congress or the president with the White House says anything about allowing people to be legally here, then they have a massive surge. So I'm going to continue to say I'm not going to talk about it until the border's secure, and then I can assure you we will work it out. But if I start giving those assurances, oh, don't worry, then we get the surge, and every time there's a surge, there are people that die trying to get here, and there are girls going into sex slavery. And one of the things that really bothers me, too, is that I've been down there when our Border Patrolmen have questioned people as they're in processing. How much did you have to pay? You know, it's going to the drug cartels. How much did you pay? $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Where'd you get that? Well, $1,000 from somebody in the U.S., $1,500 here. Well, where are you getting the rest? They're going to let me work it off when I get into the United States. And they hand them an address. Some of them they detain, but most of them they, as a Border Patrolman told me, they call us, the drug cartels call us their logistics. They get them across the border and DHS ships them wherever they want to go. We are helping put their workers, their employees of the drug cartels in cities across America. That's got to stop, but the surge increases every time somebody like me says, we're going to work it out. They don't have to worry. I'm not going to comment till the border's secure, and then we'll get it worked out, I promise you. Just help us get it secured, and we'll be able to address it quickly.
All right.
A lot can happen. All right.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. Congressman Gohmert, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Yeah, that's all the time that we have for our newscast right now.
And nobody was screaming and hollering. I could answer the questions. Great.
Good night.
Right. We'll be